Hi, greedy 3Ders. I may very well be wearing a Batman shirt, but today we're making Neo from The Matrix. Hang on a second. Yeah, I'll have the red pill. Thank you. If you like The Matrix and you like Neo and you want to see how I made him from Wicked, all the painting, etc., stay tuned. We are using Fun Cricol resin in the Ultracraft Reflex RS Turbo to make Neo. This is how he turned out. Now, there was a bit of a failure. I did do a whole video previously talking about Fun Cricol resin. It's got nothing to do with the resin. It's got to do with my poorly supporting a solid piece. It should have printed, it didn't. I should have put more supports on. I've got a failure here, and I've also covered this in a previous video where I put a support hole in and I made a little bit of a hole where I used more Fun Cricol products, but this time they're light curing putty to fix said problem. I'll put links in the description where you can get hold of all this stuff, and make sure you check out some of my other videos where I cover these topics in much more detail. But I have repaired his boot. You would never know if you didn't know, and all the information needed on how I did this will be in that other video. And then it is all fixed and ready to rock and roll. There is Neo. Quite a few gaps on this model. This is Neo by Wicked, and he's got quite a big cape. I suspect he's been designed to fit on normal size printers, the average printers that most of us Joes have got. So there has to be a few gaps if you're printing it in 1/6, as you can see there. But don't worry, we'll talk about how we filled them. Beautiful sculpt you've done here, Wicked. And if you like The Matrix, you definitely need to get hold of this Neo sculpt. Just look how wonderful it's printed in that Fun Cricol resin, which again is not a proprietary resin for the Ultracraft Reflex RS. A little bit of work to do, as you can see there on the old hands. There's a few support notches to get rid of and a few around his eye, etc., and his mush. But again, you're going to expect this with any kind of resin printing. I had a wonderful time sat in that beautiful 30-degree heat in the UK with my sander and my engraving tool and a bit of sandpaper, just cleaning up these models, listening to the dogs run wild around me. Had a wonderful couple of hours. I'm using this UV putty by Fun Cricol to fill those gaps in the actual coat. And all I'm doing with this stuff, and forgive me if you've seen me use this stuff before, I really don't want to teach you how to suck eggs, as you hear my dogs barking there in the background, the little cherubs. I'm just pushing it into the gap. I'm getting it right into the gap. It's moldable when it's uncured, but as soon as you cure it, it turns to absolute stone. So try to do the majority of the work that you can do by getting it done before it cures, because once it cures, your job becomes a lot harder. So I'm just smoothing it in, I'm pushing it, I'm moulding it, I'm trying to get it as close to detail as I can. I'm using this big thick brush to just brush away any excess of this UV putty, and I'm trying to mould the shape of the cloak into it. Once I'm happy, I'm curing it with the UV, I'm going over it again. I gave it a couple of layers. It's not perfect, I'm not going to say it is. You know, filling gaps in textured surfaces, I find it really difficult. If you guys know a cheat or a better way to do it, let me know. I've seen things using the stuff like Green Stuff from Green Stuff World, Milliput, wood filler, all the things that you can use, but you still get that trying to get the gap to go away, and especially when it's textured like this is. They also make this softer kind of UV putty that comes in a syringe, and you can push this into the little gaps and smear it around. It's really good stuff. I've got to be honest, I'm really impressed with this. I've heard people say that you can do the same sort of thing with talcum powder and resin, and I've used that in the past, absolutely. It's just this comes in a handy syringe or a handy little tub. It's easy to just get hold of and store and all the rest of it. I just find it lovely. I'm smoothing some of the softer stuff across as well to try and even everything out, and I'm hitting it with that wonderful UV goodness to solidify it. Once I've done that, a bit of IPA with a little bit of blue roll, the obligatory blue roll, and I'm just getting off any of that sticky tacky. It doesn't really leave much of it behind, but I'm getting it off anyway. Now, I'm giving him a coat with some matte black from Army Painter. He is very black. He's black all over. This is a predominantly dark model, so I'm going to show you some tricks later on to brighten it up a little bit. And there's the cover in the boot. Is it perfect? No. Would you know it's there if you didn't know it's there just by looking at the model? You would never know. And there are the glasses. I can't tell you how how much of a pain in the backside these were to make. I did them in the end in some clear resin. It's a bit harder, and they didn't fall apart or break. They've printed absolutely beautifully on my Formlabs Form 4 using their clear resin. I did 4 pairs of them, and they worked. Once I printed them before on the RS, I did have a few problems in that resin. It was just a bit too brittle for it. Anyway, to the painting, using some pink on the face, and I'm giving him a layer of a kind of pink purple colour underneath the skin tones, and the same with the hands. You can see the difference in those hands. There was an awful lot of support settings on them, but they've all come off thankfully, or 99% of them. You might see the odd one sneaking through. Am I perfect? No. Have I ever said I am? No. Nomad Flesh is the colour that I always use for skin tones when I'm airbrushing, and a base layer of Nomad Flesh is going all over Mr. Neo at the moment, getting everywhere really, but just leaving a little bit of that hint of the purple, the pink in the background, and that's what he looks like with the first layer on. Look at the texture on him. He looks amazing, doesn't he? I'm so pleased with this sculpt. Same again for the hands. Getting it all over, including the finger in the trigger. These guns are going to need a bit of a black paint up soon because they're covered in colours. Barbarian Flesh will be the next colour going on, and I'm doing it top down as I always say. Sorry if you're fed up with me saying this, but where the natural light source would be coming from, which is above down, just trying to get the outer part of his nose, his chin, his cheeks, etc. to be a little bit lighter, to add a bit of striation and variation to the skin colours. I'll do a bit more work on the with the brush stage of this, but from an airbrush perspective, second layer on, you can start to see some different colours on him, which is good. Same again for the hands, top down, because he's going to be holding the guns in that direction. Just at the very top of the hand, he's going to get a bit of a blast. Wildling Flesh, the third and final of the triad from Army Painter Paints. Very, very light. Don't overdo this one. I think I overdid this a little bit because he looks a little bit washed out, and this is always the risk in doing it. You know, you just need to be really, really careful. And although I think I've got some striation, I put a bit too much of the Wildling Flesh on. I'm going to bring that back, but it's a lesson to learn from all of us. Don't overdo it. Do it little, do it often. You can always put it on, but you can't really take it off. Same again with the hands, and they've come out a lot better. Now, a sneaky preview here of Kaleido Colourworks from Galeri. You've all heard of Galeri that make the airbrushes. Well, they've sent me some test paints. I'm not going to talk about them too much at the moment because they're not released just yet. You can't get hold of them just yet. But they've sent me some to play with, so I will be looking at them in a forthcoming video. But I just don't tell anyone. Just don't tell anyone. Shut the curtains. Whisper quietly. I'm just showing you them, and they've gone away as quick as they came. Stay tuned, I'll talk about them more in forthcoming videos. Remember I said he's very, very black, he's a very dark video, sort of model. I'm going to take some of this grey now. It's a very dark grey, and the first thing I'm going to do is bring his t-shirt a little bit back from the black. I know the reference pictures it's black. If you want to leave it black, absolutely fine, but I just want to add a little bit more colour in this, just a tiny bit. It's a model at the end of the day. I'll sit it on a shelf. If it's black, it's just going to look boring. So I'm going over the bits of his leather jacket that stick out, the outer edges and the folds of his leather. I'm not going to give too much of this. I definitely don't want to change it back to a grey. I want it to stay as black, and believe me, when it's finished, you can see these striations, you can see these changes in colour, but they're very, very, very delicate, and they don't stand out too much. I'm also going to go over his belts again because everything's black. I've said it 1,000 times. I don't want everything to be black. I just want it to be a little bit different. So I might tone it down. I'll see how it looks out. I might put a wash over it. Depends when it dries, how dark it is. Spoiler, it didn't look too bad actually. I didn't need to do anything with it. I just gave it this layer of grey, and I took a bit of Drakenhof Nightshade, which is almost like a blue hue, and I just gave that underneath where the shadows would be in the deeper areas of his cape, of his leather jacket, underneath, around the outer. You get what I'm doing here. I'm just changing it from complete and utter boring old noir to something with a bit more colouring. And you never saw me use this Kaleido varnish. Never saw it. You're imagining me using this gloss varnish, all because it's not released yet. It's going all over his leather jacket just to make it a little bit shiny and bring forth a leathery look, and that's all I do to get that leathery look. Just give it a little bit of that Kaleido varnish that you never saw me use. Now his hands have got some veins on, and normally I don't think I'd really bother painting the veins, but because there's not much skin tone on it at all, I just wanted to do as much as I could to put a bit more colour in, so I've used a tiny slither of paint on the tiniest little brush just to paint his veins in, and I'm going to go over those with the dry brush skin in a bit just to push them back even further. But I wanted you to get the idea of how I do veins. I did a whole video on this, which I'll try and link at the end. Anyway, back to skin tones, and flesh wash from Pro Acryl is next on my palms, and all I'm going to do with this is paint this really thick across him. I want to bring back some of the colour that I've overdone with the too much of the wildling flesh. So I'm just going to splatter this and lather this on him spuriously and thickly, and get it all in the nooks and all the crannies and around every little bits of his ear hole and his nostril. Take a makeup brush, a makeup pad, use a rough edge to that pad. I want to rip it so it's rough, and then I'm going to dab it off with that to leave a little speckly effect. I did this twice, I think 2 layers. I only showed you the first layer, you get the gist. Just went over it a couple of times. So I did exactly the same to the hands, just to make everything look a little bit more uniform, so you think it's all on the same model and it's a member of the same human. Is he a human? Is he a human? There's a question. Let me know in the comments. Before I moved on to some flesh base, well, I know he's a human, but in the film he's a human, and all I'm going to do here is dry brush this colour back across the Pro Acryl just to lighten up certain areas. Again, I want to give more colours to the face. I want to give it quite a few variations, and this is definitely one of the ways in which I've done it, and I'm getting happier with how his face is looking. The skin tones are coming back nicely from that overdoing of the wildling flesh, and there we go. Dry brush all the way across, same again on his hands. And what we're doing here as well is we're pushing the veins even further back, so they are just a hint, just a faded hint of venous activity on his hands, before taking some Harvester flesh, which is an even lighter colour, and I'm definitely not going to overdo this. I'm just going to hit some higher points on his face and his nose and his top of the bridge of his cheeks and on the edges of his ears, just to really pull back the darker areas in the darker areas and the lighter areas in the lighter areas, and that's what he looks like. I'm okay with that. Same again on the hands, and again it's pushing the veins back a little bit further, using that same colour, that Harvester flesh colour on his nails as well, which they're like a whitey kind of colour when you paint them with this. As you can see, it's not going to stand out too much. It's a 1/6 model. They're very tiny, but these little details, I think when you get up and close and personal to it, really help. Before we take some red tone, and I'm going to bring some red into him now, paint some red on real thick, get a brush real quick afterwards and just spread it around and move it around so it doesn't pull. You don't want big globs of this red anywhere. Just put it under his eyes and paint it on. As soon as it's on there, rub it off. You can do this for a couple of times if you want, layer after layer, till you get the red that you want. I've also used this neat on his lips just to give his lip some colour, and I painted the teeth white. His teeth look a bit weird. His teeth do look like he's had a few knocked out. Perhaps he has by, what's his name, Mr. Smith. I don't know if it's Mr. Smith. I think it's Mr. Smith. But anyway, get the red around, especially around the hairline, in the ears, in the nostrils, around the eyes, around the... You get the gist all over, really. Get it on, wipe it off, get it on, wipe it off, until there's enough on there that you're happy with, and he's got a bit of a red life tone to the skin. Going back to the Pro Acryl, and I am going to just add a few freckles or little skin marks on him. Flick the majority of it off before you do the rest on your model, and then just flicky flick. I'm really sorry, I think it goes a bit blurred here. Real poor photography. I blame the camera, not me, but you get the gist of what I'm doing, and that's what he looks like. You can just see some very light speckles on him. If you overdo it, just get an ear bud and cotton bud and just wipe them off while it's wet, and that's it. I think his skin is virtually done. Bring black next. We need to bring his hair back to black, because at the moment it's all covered in skin, so no rocket science here. Just get a nice thin brush and brush his hair. Take your time, don't get it all over the flesh. Might be an idea to seal the flesh once you finish, because if you do get it over the flesh, then you can wipe it off with a matte varnish to seal it. But there you go, the hair is on. And somebody in a comment when I put a picture up said he doesn't look like Keanu. I think he does look like Keanu is. I think we could have done a great job. Onto the base anyway. You're waffling again, greedy. Just some dry brush, some stone golem across the whole thing. Give it a blast all the way across. I don't want it to be too overwhelming the base, but I am going to do something to it at the end, which we'll talk about. But some streaking grime on there, and I'm just going to line this down the little squares in the base itself, and I'm going to also fill some of the striations of the base, if you like, with it. I just want to take it away from boring old grey. You could do it with an airbrush if you wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to paint it on and use that makeup sponge to push it into certain areas. But I think you'd agree, I hope you agree, I think it gives a really good effect. It's simple, it's quick, it's not hard to do. It just looks like some kind of manky old stone, and I'm happy with that. But I am going to put a little bit of Agrax Earthshade on there as well, just to add a little bit of brown on a sponge. I could have done this on the airbrush, but the airbrush is in the man cave. I'm painting in the studio in the house, so I'm not going to go backwards and forwards. I can't be bothered. Shoot me if you will in the comments, but I think doing it on a sponge has just done the right job. And also, some people don't actually own an airbrush, so if they want to do stuff like this without, you can. And that's the base pretty much done, apart from one little thing I'm going to add to it, which you may like, you may not, I don't know, I just felt it needed it. Going back to the Harvester flesh now, once his eyebrows are on, I'm just going to give them a brush across with the last colour that I used on the skin, really, just to try to blend them into the background. I'm going around the hairline as well, because I just want that to merge between the black of the hair and the pink of the skin. I want the two to flow into each other a little more. I think I've achieved that. I think it looks okay. I'm fairly happy with that. It's going to have glasses on anyway, so the joy with this, and I'm dancing around the room as I say, is I haven't got to paint the eyes. Whoop, bleeding whoop. We all like painting eyes, don't we? Come on, be honest. Now, a bit of brown on the hair just to darken that up a bit. As you saw, that chocolate colour, just to take away the boringness of the black. And that face is pretty much done. I'm going to use a little bit of glue on a toothpick. The little glasses that I've just given a layer of black onto, the tiniest show of glue just on the bit that goes over his nose, because I don't want any running paint of glue or globs on him. And this probably gave me a little bit of stress getting these on, because you only really get one shot, and if this all goes wrong, then you've ruined a bit of work, haven't you? But thank God they went on. I can't tell you how many pairs of glasses I tried to make before I got a pair that I was actually happy with. And yep, these signature glasses are on. Could leave them dark and matte like that, but I don't want to do that, so I'm taking a bit of a Lay-Ho liquid gloss, and I'm just going to make them look a little bit more like lenses. Whether you leave them matte, whether you want them a bit shinier, it's your choice, it's your model. And away we go. And there you can see now, there's the lips done that I spoke about earlier. The teeth are a bit white. You can see all the different colours on his face, the red, the little spots, the brown in his hair, the merging of the hair and the skin. I think we're done. On his boots, he's got this, it looks like a whitey creamy emblem around the circle part, so I'm just going to take a fine brush and put that on. I'm not going to be too careful, because these boots are going to be aged up a little bit, and I just want them to be movie accurate, I guess. So all I'm doing is painting that on, giving it one layer so it looks faded and tatty. Also the front of his boots, if you look at the reference pictures, they're almost like a grey white sort of colour, so I'm just dry brushing that across the front as well, just again for movie accuracy really. And there's his boots started to come along nicely. Skeleton bow next on a dry brush, and I'm just going to make the boots look a little bit more interesting just by putting that skeleton bone across all the folds. They're leathery kind of boots, these are. So as you can see, I've just kind of aged them up a little bit, I think you'd agree. And again, while I had that out in my hand, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go over some of the leather on his trousers and his coat with this on the higher areas, just to bring them back to life. Then I'm going to get some silver, and I am going to dry brush across the guns. Now, I have painted the guns black where there were some skin tones on them, and just dry brushing that silver across the guns has done a marvellous job. It's really brought out the details in the guns, and it's extenuated all the wording and all the bits and pieces before taking panel liner just to bring some of the black back, just certain areas, not all over. And perhaps I'm going over the top. I didn't really need to, but it looks nice when you get up close to those guns. I'm happy with his skin on his hands, and I'm happy with his guns. Out with the silver again, same silver. I painted all those buckles. There were lots and lots of buckles on this model, but he's painted them all, and I think they've come out really, really nice. And that's what his boot looks like, with the rivets painted, the buckles painted. It's done. It's finished. Put it down. Now, I'd painted the rest of the silver on him, but I was going to darken it up with a bit of I don't know, some wash, but I didn't didn't in the end, because he hasn't got much colour on him apart from black, so I left the silver, and I'm just going around the edge with the green. This is what I was talking about earlier, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. And did you like that? Is that good? Is it bad? Neo's done. Let's have a look at him. Now, Wicked have been going for donkey's years, and I've been a member of Wicked for donkey's years. They make some fantastic prints. You get such a lot for your money. Make sure you check out their Patreon. I'll put a link in the description where you can get a hold of them. But the guys at Wicked are just fantastic. So Neo is from there. They also do Trinity. Make sure you check them out. There's loads of things you can get from there. Let me know what you think about how Neo was painted. Is there anything you liked, anything you didn't like, anything you would have done differently, anything you think that I should have done? I always like constructive criticism in any of my videos. Please think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We do have a Patreon. You would be more than welcome to join, and thank you to my Patreons for supporting the channel. You guys are just awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, really, sincerely. You guys are fantastic. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought, and let's see what we do next time on Greedy 3D. There's no plan. We don't have a plan. We might be reviewing something. We might be painting something. We might be doing something completely different. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon, really, really soon, on Greedy 3D.